Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Rebecca, I'm 44 years old and I used to suffer from multiple sclerosis, but I no longer experience any of the symptoms since starting the carnivore diet 2 years ago. And today's video is meant to be a light-hearted one, although it does touch on some quite heavy topics, as you'll see as the video goes on. I just wanted to go over some of the juiciest insults that I have received, mainly coming from vegans, although I have also received some of these from sugar dieters in recent times. And I just want to say before I go into them that I don't have this problem in real life. I have plenty of vegan friends. I'm not out to demonize vegans at all. I have lots of respect for vegans. I'm a big believer in body sovereignty and individual choice, and so I'm not interested in this type of mudslinging. But in recent times, I guess they have become more and more comical, so I just thought it was a good material for a video. It's just the nature of the internet, so I don't take any of this too seriously at all. Anyway, so I'm going to do the top 5, and number 5 is delusional. I am delusional. So this is an interesting one. I mean, I guess what I'm being accused of is believing that the diet has done me good, but in fact it hasn't done me good. And I guess, the only thing I can say to this is, if being delusional means that I no longer have any symptoms of MS or any disease activity in my recent brain scans, then I'm happy to be delusional. That's fine. I'll be delusional if that's what delusional does. And I would quite like to bottle up delusional and hand it out to other MS sufferers as well. So I guess the other implication with delusional, to be fair, is that it's possibly implying that I believe that the diet will be healthy in the long run. It might be working for me now, but in the long run, I will run into problems. And that's not something I'm in a position to make any factual claims about. I don't know what the future will be. However, I did not know what the future would be before I started the diet when I was struggling with MS either. And even if I didn't have MS, I wouldn't know what the future would be in terms of my health or injury or whatever might happen in life. And I have taken a calculated risk that, based on primarily my experience, but also the science I'm reading around the diet, because science is not a foregone conclusion, it's an ongoing discussion, and there is science behind the carnivore diet. It might not be mainstream science, but there's valid science behind the carnivore diet. I'm taking that gamble, and that's a calculated risk. And the reason I'm happy to do it is that I want to live my life now. And if that's what the carnivore diet is doing for me, then if and when I run into any problems in the future, by then I'd like to think that I will have a community around me and financial stability because I've made the most of my healthy years. I personally don't believe that I will run into health problems because of the carnivore diet, because I believe that it was our ancestral diet and that it's possibly the correct human nutrition. And I think that processed foods and sugars do far more damage, but my future isn't unknown and I'm willing to take that risk. So call me delusional or call me somebody who is taking a calculated risk. Either way, that's fine. So that's number 5. Number 4 is that I have been indoctrinated into a cult. Okay, well, let's start by talking about what is the definition of a cult. Cults are characterized by authoritarian leadership, suppression of dissent, coercion and control, and isolation from family and friends and outside influence. So that's that's not quite what I've experienced in the carnivore diet. I've simply come across some YouTube videos and decided to give this a try, and I found a community of people that are also doing the same, who have also seen similar results. And I think it's a bit of a stretch to define it as a cult. And I would also say to that rather than indoctrination, I've experienced an actual physical result that has been consistent since I started the diet, which has encouraged me to continue with the diet. So my reading around came afterwards. I started looking into the carnivore diet literature and research afterwards, after I'd already experienced the results. So I wasn't indoctrinated brainwashed. My brain literally regenerated, and then I started to work out why that had happened. So it's like the other way around. Also, I would say that if you're a vegan or a sugar dieter and you're looking at another community of dieters and you're saying they're a cult, well, by your definition, you're also in a cult. It's like, what's the difference? Literally, what's the difference? So I personally wouldn't say that you are in a cult if you were a vegan or you are a sugar dieter. I think you're just following a diet, and I think it's your absolute right to do so, and it's none of my business, and I'm happy for you to have whatever opinions you have about me and my diet and my community of dieters. It's really has no bearing on my life. But yeah, I think, you know, cult is a bit of a stretch. Okay, so that's number 4. What is number 3? Number 3 is murderer. And I've got to say, I understand this one. This one I actually understand, and I don't agree with it, because murderer has got a legal definition. There's a legal definition of murderer, and that is the unlawful killing of another human being with intent. And that is not what meat eaters are doing. So it's simply factually incorrect on a legal basis. And really, I shouldn't have to waste my time explaining that. Although at the same time, I have sympathy for people who feel that way about animals, because it's not the case that I think that animals are not sentient and that they don't have rights. I absolutely think that they do have rights and that they should be treated well. And to be honest, I think most carnivores feel the same, that they should have wonderful lives, be free and grass-fed and treated well and with kindness and compassion, and then given the most humane slaughter possible when the time comes. Now, it's not a comfortable reality, but it is actually something that I don't have a moral problem with, and that's my right, and that's the right of anybody out there who also eats meat. There is a discussion to be had around the ethics and morality of factory farming. I would say that's a different category of discussion, and I would say that most carnivores probably feel the same as most vegans about factory farming. So it's, yeah, I think murderer is just a bit inflammatory, and it's simply incorrect. It's not the same at all. And I think people who chuck around words like that, in my experience, just end up making complete fools of themselves. So yeah, that's my response to being a murderer. Like I say, it's the one that I can understand and can kind of sympathize with, but I simply don't agree that that's the category that we're talking about, the legal category or the moral category that we're talking about. Okay, so that's number 3. Now the next 2, I can't actually say on YouTube without risking being flagged up. So I have to censor the words. This is how ridiculous the situation's getting. We've gone from delusional to brainwashed into a cult to murderer, and now we've got 2 words I can't even say. So the first one is a rapist. And this is where what I was saying at the beginning, we are getting into quite serious accusations. Yes, so I have actually been called a rapist. And I'm going to refer to the legal definition, and that's to do with non-consensual sexual coercion carried out by force, where the victim hasn't or is unable to consent. As I say, it's not that animals don't have rights, but they're not in the same category as humans, in the sense that they're not, we don't consider them legal entities that can give consent. So I don't think the definition holds. It wouldn't hold in a court of law, and it's not accurate. Also, I mean, does it have to be pointed out that having a bacon sandwich doesn't mean that you're going around doing unspeakable things to pigs? You know, it's not the same. And I know that what they're referring to is the artificial insemination of cows for the dairy industry. I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's something that's nice. I do think that there's a discussion to be had about the practices of industrial farming and the suffering of animals that industrial farming inflicts. And yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. And carnivores don't want it any more than vegans do. And I think it's okay to want that utopia while eating the proper human diet and working to bring us back to our ancestral roots as much as possible and away from this artificial world of factory farming and processed foods that surrounds us, and I don't think that we should be held accountable for the way the world has become just because we want to eat what we consider to be the proper human diet. So it's a missed opportunity for vegans and carnivores to get together and fight against factory farming. Also, I'd like to say that if we're going to stretch the definition of grape, then why don't we stretch it to include the way that monocropping of, for example, soya plantations grapes the soil. So if you're drinking your soya milk instead of your cow milk, who's to say you're not a grapist as well? That's ridiculous. I wouldn't say that. So it's using the term in a metaphorical way that is legally inaccurate and that is just inflammatory, and it's not getting anyone anywhere in chucking these very serious words around. I don't think we can hijack serious human trauma and chuck it around for shock value. I don't think that's right. And number one, I have been called an N-word ending in artsy. Yes, that is one of the insults that has been thrown at me because I am a carnivore. Now, the main problem I have with this is that however brutal factory farming might be, the Holocaust in comparison was a targeted, systematic extermination of millions of people based on their ethnicity. Equating that to raising animals for food is essentially trivializing one of the most horrific atrocities in human history. And you can't just go chucking these words around. Intent and context are extremely important. Factory farming exists to produce food. It's not done out of hatred or a desire for animals to suffer or to eliminate a species. And that's a huge moral and philosophical difference. Let's not just chuck around emotionally loaded concepts for shock value that shut down discussion. Anyway, so I'm sure this video will probably attract some snarky comments. That's okay. It just means that my videos are reaching a wider audience. I'm probably not going to get involved if that's the case. I've said my piece. If you're going to use these really inflammatory and incorrect legal terms, you're just shutting down nuance and escalating arguments and alienating people who might actually get behind what your arguments are. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And that's what I think. And anyway, so I hope you guys have enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.